Welcome back, folks, to Space Coast Daily. I'm Giles Malone for SpaceCoastDaily.com. I'm here with the Swamis of Brevard County Sports, Steve Wilson and Orville Susong, joining us again as we move forward into the basketball season. Before we do that, though, we'd like to really congratulate all the teams who made it so deep into the playoffs this year, especially the last two teams that represented Brevard going into the last round was Cocoa and Heritage, and the guys here would like to give them a special message.
Well, you know, let's start off with the team down south in Palm Bay. Mark Ainsley and the Heritage Panthers went deep into the playoffs for the first year for Mark Ainsley and his coaching staff down there. Went up against a very powerful, as always, Miami Central team and come away with a loss, but I think they put a lot of good feelings in people's mind about football down at Heritage. They did a great job. They came up a little bit short, but from the game last year to the game this year, I think their program has improved quite a bit, and congratulations to Mark Ainsley and the Heritage Panthers. And
the perennial powerhouse of Brevard County sports, Cocoa Tigers.
Congratulations to Coach John Wilkinson and the Tigers, state runner-ups. They've been in the Final Four for the past 8 years. I'd have loved to see Jamel Dean play the second half. He was injured. Tigers came up 2 points short, but still, I'm going to call it a successful season. Coach Wilkinson will not, unless they win it all, it's not a success, but they did well. They represented the county well and gave Booker T. Washington fits. They will be back next year.
Well, football will be back, but now we're moving on to boys basketball. Some great powerhouse programs here in Brevard. We're going to start out with the 2A. And Steve is going to give us his analysis of those teams.
Class 2A District 11 consists of the Brevard Heat, Covenant Christian, Masters Academy, Merritt Island Christian, and Morningside. Last year's winner, district winner, Covenant Christian, probably the team to beat at this point, although Brevard Heat playing well. They beat Masters by 14 points last week, and Morningside, one of their district opponents, by 9 points. So the Heat are a team to look out for. They actually will be hosting Covenant Christian this week. So I think the winner of that team will probably, you have to give the early nod to as far as who's the lead dog in that district. But don't count out Morningside. They gave Heat fits, only lost by 11. So still kind of early to tell, but a very competitive district from what I can see.
Orville, how does the 3A look?
Class 3A District 13, a very large district for 3A. Benjamin out of Palm Beach Gardens, Florida Air, John Carroll from Fort Pierce, Jupiter Christian from Jupiter, MCC in Melbourne, and St. Edward's down in Vero Beach. So a lot of miles away from these schools, and so it'd be a lot of traveling in this district. Last year, Florida Air and Coach Capurro won that district, and so far this year they're doing just as well. They won 3 games last week by a very large margin, but you have to like them as the #1 team again in that district. MCC with Rob Terry coaching that team, they were #2 in the district last year. A big game for MCC and Florida Air will be Tuesday night, this coming Tuesday. MCC hosts Florida Air at MCC. That should be a good one, and that'll tell you real quick who's going to be the 1 and 2 in that district.
Moving up to the 4A, Steve.
Class 4A District 8 consists of Astronaut, Cocoa Beach, Edgewood, Holy Trinity, Space Coast, and West Shore. A lot of people think it's a 2-team district between the Tigers, the Holy Trinity Tigers and the Cocoa Tigers. They were the #1 and 2 teams in the district last year, respectfully. Space Coast undefeated at this point, 6-0. I don't know about the level of competition they've played. I don't know yet if they can play with Holy Trinity and Cocoa, but I think the Tigers are going to duke it out for the top seed. Cocoa, we had a chance to watch play Edgewood last week, and I made the comment that Edgewood might be a dark horse. I think they showed they're not quite ready to play with the big boys in that district. The Tigers from Cocoa pretty much had their way, but Coach Rocky Jenkins' Edgewood Indians are going to win a lot of games. Astronaut down a little bit, Cocoa Beach down a little bit. Space Coast is my question mark team at this point, but I like the Tigers. Both Tigers. If I had to select a Tiger, probably Holy Trinity at this point because they are the defending champions in that district. But now that Cocoa football's over, they've got their football players back. Coach Rowe's going to be smiling this week. It's going to be a fun district to follow.
How does the 5A look, Orville?
Class 5A, then the top District 14, you've got the Merritt Island Mustangs, Rockledge Raiders, Satellite Scorpions, and the Titusville Terriers. Last year, Rockledge and Titusville 1 and 2 in that district. And I think it's going to be the same thing this year. Merritt Island lost to Melbourne 63-54, Burnham with 15 points in that ball game. The Rockledge Raiders are going to be solid. Satellite lost to MCC 82-62, so that tells you they were in third place last year ahead of Merritt Island at the end of the season for the district. Chris Bainbridge and the Titusville Terriers, they'll fight Rockledge for the #1 spot.
And the 6A.
Class 6A, District 7, a couple of Orlando teams, East River and Edgewater, along with a couple of Brevard teams, O'Galley and Heritage. It reminds me of the girls' district in that it's Edgewater is going to be so hard to beat this year. That they're so talented. Heritage 3-2 at this point. They did beat Treasure Coast by 21 points, a big win for the Panthers. O'Galley a little under 500 at this point, but I think Edgewater is without question the lead dog in their district, followed closely by O'Galley and Heritage. East River yet to win a basketball game this year. I think they're probably looking at #4 seed.
Okay, and the 7A.
Before we finish the 7A, District 15 and 5A, we've got 3 teams there: Bayside, Palm Bay, and Suncoast. Didn't play anything this week due to the holiday, but Bayside with a big game this week on Tuesday night. They're going to take on the Titusville Terriers. That'll tell you something about those two programs. And the Palm Bay Pirates travel up to Merritt Island. Palm Bay 3-16 last year. They're going to be down this year. That should be a good game. The Merritt Island Mustangs and the Palm Bay Pirates, both of those teams, middle of the road teams, I think, this year. Then we go on to Class 7A, Martin County, Melbourne, Sebastian River, and Viera, just as the girls. Melbourne, Mike Sullivan and the Melbourne Bulldogs, they won the district last year, beating Martin County. So I still like those two fighting it out for the district. You've got Viera in there. They went 0-23 last year. They're going to be tough to get a program going there. They're going to slowly try to rebuild that program. Sebastian River played 500 basketball last year. Don't look for them to do much better this year. So I think that the big game, Melbourne, Bulldogs travel to, the Cocoa Tigers travel to Melbourne this Friday night, and that will be the Friday night locker room game of the week. And we'll be there to call that game, and that should be a very exciting game. That'll tell us a lot about those two teams.
That's right. That'll really give us a good measure on these Brevard County powerhouses. Now we're going to go ahead and rank these teams across all districts, across all divisions. In the boys, we're going to have the top 5 from Steve and the top 5 from Orville, starting with Mr. Wilson.
I'll go first. I'm sure Orville's going to want to copy me, but I'll go first anyway, not a problem. I like the Hustlers from MCC at #5. Kellen Rogers averaging over 20 points a game for Coach Terry, putting up big-time numbers. Melbourne Bulldogs, Coach Sullivan, with over 400 wins in his high school career. Right. He knows how to win basketball games there. Coming in at #4 for me, the Cocoa Tigers, Coach James Rose, undefeated Tigers, ranked 3rd in my book. Now that his football players are back, he's getting Chauncey Gardner, who's going to be one of the best basketball players in the county. He's one of the best football players in the county. But Jay Wilcox has scored a lot of points for Coach Rowe. I like the 3rd-ranked Tigers at this point. Skylar Hogan and the Holy Trinity Tigers stepping in at #2. They just win basketball games. They're very, very talented, very athletic, and they did edge out Cocoa in their district last year, which is why primarily I have them ahead of Cocoa at this point in time. But have the Falcons from Florida Air Academy at #1. Julius Johnson may be the best basketball player in Brevard County. Coach Caporo just reloads. I like the Falcons up top right now.
Okay, Falcons to the top. How do you see it, Orville?
Well, first off, we'll see how Steve does after this Friday night, because his #1 and 2 teams play each other, Florida Air and MCC. So one of his number 5 is going to be in a lot of trouble, and also the Melbourne Bulldogs and the Cocoa Tigers play. So we're going to have a big shakeup in the top 5 right off the bat. But my #5 is Melbourne Central Catholic. I like the Hustlers. They're going to play Florida Air, and I don't think Florida Air is going to back down from them. They're going to win that ball game. At #4, I have the Holy Trinity Tigers. Steve has them in their top 5. I do also. He let me slide that one in. I've got James Rowe and the Cocoa Tigers in #3. And the only reason I think they'll move up, Giles, later, but right now he's got 5 guys coming from football. Big conditioning problem between football, not problem, but difference in conditioning between a basketball player and a football player. They're not going to run out there and play Friday night 14, 20 minutes, anything like that. So James Rowe's going to go in, I think, a little underhanded against the Melbourne Bulldogs. Melbourne didn't go deep in the playoffs, so if there was any basketball players on the Melbourne squad, Mike Sullivan's already had them. So he's there. So I got Coco at 3. I got Mike Sullivan and the Melbourne Bulldogs at number 2. Melbourne's going to be at home this week against the Tigers. I like Melbourne there, and I've got Florida Air. You can never go against Coach Caporo and the Florida Air Falcons. They're going to bring people in from all over the country to play basketball, and Brevard County's not going to be able to keep up with them.
Well, there it is, Florida Air Academy at the top of both these gentlemen's list this week. We'll see how it turns out. The Friday Night Locker Room game of the week, of course, Friday. Make sure you tune in to that. And also onto Space Coast Daily to get all of your updates on the scores on Friday night. We would like to thank the sponsors of the Friday Night Locker Room who really make this possible. These gentlemen go out year after year covering the high school sports for you, and we are so glad to have partnered up with them with Space Coast Daily to get all this great factual information. We'd like to thank their sponsors and recognize them. Mike Erdman, Cadillac Nissan, Alan Wester at State Farm Insurance, Beef O'Brady is up on 524 in Cocoa, Jim Knudsen at the Brain Spine Injury Law Firm, Planet Fitness of Rockledge, Florida Master Temp to fix your air conditioning and heating needs, Space Coast Tire, Berry Signs, Custom Print Screen Printing, and Goodson Paving. Those are the people that make this possible. I want to thank them and recognize them. Please support our sponsors as they support Brevard County High School athletics. Thank you. We'll see you next Friday for a great edition of the Friday Night Locker Room and on SpaceCoastDaily.com.